Burkina Faso's young leader, Ibrahim Traoré, has spoken again. This time, he sent a message that shook Africa. He said he will do everything possible to make sure Nnamdi Kanu is released, and he also promised justice for the victims of Kenya's deadly protests. Let's break this down. Ibrahim Traoré did not hide his words. He went straight to the point. He said Africa cannot claim to be free when some voices of freedom are kept behind bars. He mentioned Nnamdi Kanu by name, and he said it clearly. For Traoré, this was not just about Nigeria. It was not just about one community. It was about justice, fairness, and the right of people to speak without fear. He said Nnamdi Kanu's continued detention is a scar on Africa's conscience. According to him, it is not possible to silence an entire people by holding their leader. He stressed that locking up one man will not kill an idea. Instead, it only makes the idea stronger. He said the African Union must wake up and act, because silence is no longer acceptable. Traoré promised that he will do everything within his power to make sure Nnamdi Kanu is released. He said he is ready to use diplomacy, he is ready to use strong words. He said Africa must not sit down and watch one of its sons treated unfairly while the world looks away. He reminded other leaders that injustice against one is injustice against all. He warned that if leaders keep quiet when Kanu is detained, tomorrow another leader could be taken, another voice could be shut down, and the cycle of silence will continue. He said Africa cannot allow such weakness. He said leaders must protect the people, not join in oppressing them. Traoré's tone was firm. He was not begging. He was declaring. He said he has no fear to stand where others are silent. He said history will remember those who chose the side of justice. He said history will also expose those who looked away while injustice was carried out. His words cut deep, because they came from a man who is young, yet bold enough to confront what many older leaders refuse to say. He said Nnamdi Kanu's case is bigger than one country's politics. It is about the dignity of Africa. It is about the credibility of African justice systems. If leaders cannot stand up for one of their own, then how can they claim to defend their people? He said the world is watching, and Africa must stop looking weak. Traoré also spoke about freedom movements across the continent. He said leaders must understand that people are demanding respect and better lives. They are not enemies. They are citizens. And Nnamdi Kanu, whether people agree with him or not, represents the cry of a people who want to be heard. He said silencing him will never end the struggle. He promised that Burkina Faso will not be quiet. He said he will raise the issue in African meetings. He said he will speak about it on every platform where African leaders gather. He said he will push until something is done. He repeated again that he will do everything possible to see Kanu walk free. His commitment was not soft. It was direct and heavy. For many Africans, especially those who support Kanu, this was like fresh air. For years, they have shouted, protested, and begged for justice. But most African presidents avoided the matter. They kept silent, as if it did not concern them. Traoré broke that silence. He made it clear that one leader was ready to say what others were afraid to say. He said Kanu's detention has gone on for too long. He said no African should be kept in chains simply for speaking. He said disagreement should not mean imprisonment. He said dialogue is better than force, and listening is better than punishment. His words were simple but powerful. He reminded his audience that Africa has suffered too much because of silence. He gave examples of how leaders in the past allowed injustice to continue because they did not want to speak out. He said that silence destroyed trust between people and their governments. He said that silence made Africa look weak before the world. He said enough is enough. He said his duty as a leader is not only to his country but also to Africa. He said the new generation of Africans is tired of weak leadership. He said young people want action, not endless speeches. He said they want leaders who will defend them, not betray them. By standing up for Kanu, Traoré said he was standing up for every African who believes in freedom. He ended his message with strong words. He said Africa will never grow if leaders continue to jail voices they do not agree with. He said Africa must not fear debate, because debate is part of freedom. He said Kanu's release will show that Africa is ready to face its own issues with courage, not cowardice. Traoré's voice carried hope, but it also carried a warning. He was telling Africa that the time for silence is over. He was telling Nigeria that the world is watching. He was telling the African Union that its credibility is at stake. And most importantly, he was telling Nnamdi Kanu supporters that they are not alone. With that, Chapter 1 was clear. Ibrahim Traoré promised to do everything possible to make sure Nnamdi Kanu is released. Not tomorrow. Not someday. But as soon as possible. His words were a promise, and they carried the weight of a leader who is not afraid to confront injustice. Ibrahim Traoré did not skip over Kenya. He faced it directly. He said the world cannot forget what happened during the protests. Young men and women went into the streets to demand a better life. They asked for fairness. They asked for leaders to listen. Instead, many of them met violence. Instead of dialogue, they met bullets. Instead of protection, they faced death. Traoré said this is not acceptable. He said no government has the right to kill its own citizens simply because they are protesting. He said leadership is about service, not oppression. He said the blood of innocent protesters is a stain that will not wash away. He said Africa must confront this, not hide it. He promised that Burkina Faso will push for justice for the victims. He said families of the dead cannot be left in silence. They deserve answers. They deserve the truth. They deserve justice. He said no African family should bury their child because of a peaceful protest. He said leaders must learn that the people they govern are not enemies. They are the reason power exists in the first place. Traoré said what happened in Kenya is not just about one country. It is about the dignity of Africa. He said if leaders continue to kill young people when they demand change, then Africa will always remain in chains. He said a continent that kills its future has no future. He asked a direct question: how can a leader sleep at night knowing that young people were shot for demanding jobs, fairness, and hope? He said such leaders are not worthy of their seats. He said those who order guns against their citizens are betraying their duty. He said power that rests on the blood of the people is cursed. His words were heavy. They were not soft. He said Africa cannot keep repeating the same mistakes. For too long, leaders have answered protest with violence. For too long, they have chosen force over dialogue. He said this cycle must stop now. He reminded everyone that Africa's strength is its young people. He said they are the engine of the continent. They are the hope. They are the future. If leaders continue to cut them down with bullets, then Africa will collapse under its own weakness. He said protecting youth is not optional. It is the only way forward. Traoré made it clear that justice is not just about courts. It is about truth. It is about accountability. He said those who gave orders during the protests must be held responsible. He said those who fired at peaceful crowds must be brought to account. He said there can be no healing without justice. He said pretending nothing happened will only cause more pain. He also said something very striking. He said silence in the face of bloodshed is equal to approval. If African leaders look away when protesters are killed in Kenya, then tomorrow the same thing can happen anywhere else. He said it will spread, and one day no one will be safe. He said the time to act is now. Traoré's tone carried urgency. He said young people are watching. They are angry. They are demanding leaders who respect their lives. He said if leaders ignore this demand, then the gap between government and people will grow wider and wider until it breaks. He said no government can survive forever by oppressing its own citizens. He said Kenya is a test for Africa. Will leaders choose silence, or will they stand for justice? Will they protect their citizens, or will they protect their power? He said history will record the choice they make. And once history records, there is no erasing it. Traoré's words were not just criticism. They were also a call to action. He said Africa must build a new culture where leaders listen before protests even begin. He said governments should not wait until streets are burning before they act. He said the cries of young people must be answered with solutions, not soldiers. He repeated that the victims of Kenya's protests must not be forgotten. He said their lives must mean something. He said their sacrifice must be honored with justice. He said if Africa cannot deliver justice for its own children, then Africa has failed. His message was clear: every young person who died in Kenya's protests is Africa's child. Their blood is on the hands of all leaders if they remain silent. He said the continent must rise and say enough. He said leaders must know that people are not afraid anymore. The silence of the past is broken, and a new voice is rising. At the end, Traore gave a warning. He said if leaders continue to kill protesters, they will only fuel more resistance. He said oppression creates anger, and anger creates change. He said bullets cannot kill the desire for a better life. He said the only true answer is justice. And so, he promised once again, Burkina Faso will not stay quiet. He will raise the matter everywhere he can. He will demand that Kenya accounts for what happened. He will demand that justice is done. He said this is not just politics. This is about life and death. This is about the dignity of the African youth. With those words, Chapter 2 became clear: Ibrahim Traoré was not just speaking for Kenya. He was speaking for every young African who has faced violence for asking for change. His message was simple but strong. Africa must protect its children, not bury them. Justice must be done. And silence is no longer an option. Ibrahim Traoré made it clear that his message was not only about Nnamdi Kanu. It was not only about the victims of the Kenya protests. It was about the future of the entire African continent. He said these two issues are part of a bigger problem, a problem that Africa must face with courage. He said Africa has reached a turning point. It cannot keep moving forward while ignoring injustice. It cannot remain quiet when its children are suffering. He said leaders must choose now whether they will stand with the people or continue to stand with oppression. There is no middle ground anymore. Traoré said unity is the most powerful weapon Africa has, yet it is the very thing that is missing. He said African leaders have often chosen division, selfishness, and silence. And because of this, injustice spreads easily. He said when one leader is jailed without fair trial, all of Africa is weaker. When one group of protesters is killed without justice, the whole of Africa bleeds. He said this is why unity is not a slogan, it is a duty. He spoke about how the world sees Africa. He said the world respects those who defend their people, not those who betray them. He said Africa must learn to defend its own leaders, its own activists, its own young people. If Africa continues to watch silently when injustice happens, then the world will never take it seriously. He said dignity comes from action, not from empty speeches. Traoré said that leaders cannot continue to think only about their own chairs and positions. He said power is temporary, but the people are permanent. He said if leaders protect only their seats, they will lose their nations. But if they protect their people, they will gain respect that lasts forever. He warned African leaders that the young generation is watching. He said the youth are no longer the silent crowd of yesterday. They are more aware. They are more connected. They are ready to demand justice. He said leaders who ignore this wave will be swept away by it. He said the time of fear is gone. A new time of boldness has arrived. Traoré said Nnamdi Kanu's case and the Kenya protests are two clear examples. They show how Africa has failed its people again and again. He said Kanu's imprisonment shows the danger of silencing voices. He said the killing of protesters in Kenya shows the danger of abusing power. He said both are proof that Africa must change direction now. He called for action at the African Union level. He said the AU cannot continue as a talking club. He said it must prove that it stands for justice. It must demand the release of political prisoners. It must demand justice for murdered protesters. He said if the AU cannot protect Africans, then Africans will lose faith in it. He said this is bigger than politics. It is about morality. It is about whether Africa can protect its own children. It is about whether the continent can stop betraying its people. He said too many times in history, Africa has betrayed those who stood for truth. Too many times, leaders chose silence while the innocent suffered. He said this cycle must end. Traore ended his message with strong, unforgettable words. He said Africa must never betray its children again. He said no leader should ever be remembered as the one who looked away while young people were killed. He said no leader should ever be remembered as the one who stayed silent while a voice for freedom was locked up. He said leadership without justice is nothing but betrayal. He promised that he, at least, will not betray the people. He said he will continue to raise his voice. He will continue to push for justice. He will continue to call for unity. He said he would rather stand alone for justice than stand with many for injustice. His closing message was both hope and warning. He gave hope to those who believe in a new Africa, one that protects its people and respects their voices. And he gave a warning to those in power: the time of silence is over, the time of betrayal is ending, and the time of justice is rising. With that, Chapter 3 was complete. Ibrahim Traoré connected Nnamdi Kanu's struggle, the blood of Kenyan protesters, and the unity of Africa into one clear call. Africa must rise, Africa must protect its own, and Africa must never again betray its children.